The 1966 United States quarter dollar is a coin that stands as a fascinating artifact of American history, monetary reform, and cultural identity. Known officially as the Washington quarter, it represents one of the most familiar and enduring designs in U.S. coinage. Struck during a period of significant transition, the 1966 quarter reflects changes in both the nation's economy and the country's coinage system. Although it bears the familiar portrait of George Washington and the word liberty, this particular issue is notable for being part of a short-lived era in which the United States experimented with the elimination of mint marks and the introduction of new metallic compositions following the coinage reforms of 1965. To understand the 1966 quarter fully, it is important to look back at its origins and the historical circumstances surrounding its production. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the obverse features a left-facing portrait of Washington modeled after Jean-Antoine Houdon's 1785 bust of the first president. The word liberty appears above his head with the national motto, "In God We Trust," positioned to the left. The date of mintage, in this case 1966, appears at the bottom of the obverse. The reverse design depicts a heraldic eagle with outstretched wings clutching a bundle of arrows and olive branches, symbolizing the nation's readiness for defense and its desire for peace. Around the periphery are the inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum, with the denomination quarter dollar below. Before 1965, quarters were composed of 90% silver and 10% copper, giving them intrinsic value linked to precious metal content. However, by the early 1960s, rising silver prices led to widespread hoarding of coins, especially dimes, quarters, and half dollars. As the public removed silver coins from circulation, the U.S. Treasury faced severe coin shortages. To address this crisis, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which eliminated silver from the dime and quarter and reduced the silver content in the half dollar to 40%. The 1966 quarter, therefore, was among the first non-silver quarters, marking a major change in the nation's coinage. From 1965 onward, quarters were made from a clad composition, a pure copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper-nickel alloy, 75% copper, 25% nickel. This composition gave the coins a silver-like appearance while maintaining durability and lowering production costs. The 1966 quarter's physical specifications remain the same as earlier issues: a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and a weight of 5.67 grams. The edge is reeded, as with all modern quarters, to prevent shaving or counterfeiting. Despite the shift in materials, the new clad coins maintained their traditional look and feel, ensuring public acceptance. However, one important difference in the 1965 to 1967 issues was the absence of mint marks. Normally, U.S. coins carry small letters identifying the mint of origin, P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, and S for San Francisco. To discourage hoarding by collectors during the transition, the mint temporarily suspended mint marks for all denominations. As a result, all 1966 quarters appear identical, even though they were struck in both Philadelphia and Denver. Mint marks were reinstated in 1968. Production of the 1966 quarter began in 1965 and continued into 1966 as the mint worked to resolve the coin shortage. The U.S. Mint produced over 821 million quarters dated 1966, a remarkable figure that demonstrates the urgency of the time. Because of this large mintage, most 1966 quarters are considered common and are not rare in circulated condition. Nonetheless, their historical context makes them an essential piece in any numismatic collection focused on 20th century U.S. coinage or the transition away from silver. From a historical perspective, the 1966 quarter embodies a pivotal moment in the American economy. The Coinage Act of 1965 represented not only a change in composition but also a shift in philosophy. The government acknowledged that precious metals could no longer anchor the nation's circulating coinage. This change marked the end of an era that stretched back to the 18th century when coins' intrinsic value was directly tied to their metal content. The clad coinage system introduced in the mid-1960s reflected the modern realities of a growing economy and a changing world monetary order. The US dollar had become the dominant global reserve currency, and there was less need for coins to contain valuable metals. In this sense, the 1966 quarter symbolizes America's movement toward a more fiat-based monetary system. The 1966 quarter's obverse design, the portrait of George Washington, also carries deep symbolic meaning. Washington was not only the first president of the United States, but also a next top. The 1967 United States quarter dollar, often referred to simply as the 1967 Washington quarter, holds a special place in the history of American coinage. Although it may appear at first glance as a common piece of circulating currency, this particular year's issue represents a fascinating period of transition for the U.S. Mint, both in terms of coin composition and monetary policy. The absence of a mint mark, the removal of silver, and the introduction of new minting practices make the 1967 quarter an important artifact in the broader narrative of U.S. coinage. The obverse of the coin features the familiar portrait of George Washington, the nation's first president, accompanied by the inscription Liberty above his head and the national motto, "In God We Trust," to the left. The date, 1967, is inscribed below the portrait. On the reverse, the coin depicts a majestic bald eagle perched on a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength and preparedness, with olive branches beneath representing peace. Above the eagle, the words United States of America curve around the rim, and below it appears the denomination quarter dollar, denoting its value as 25 cents. Historical context. To understand the 1967 quarter, it's crucial to place it within the economic conditions of the 1960s. Prior to 1965, U.S. dimes, quarters, and half dollars were made primarily of 90% silver and 10% copper. However, as the global price of silver began to rise in the early 1960s, the intrinsic metal value of these coins approached, and in some cases exceeded, their face value. This situation led to widespread hoarding of silver coins by both collectors and the general public, resulting in severe coin shortages throughout the United States. In response to this crisis, the Coinage Act of 1965 was enacted under President Lyndon B. Johnson. This landmark legislation permanently changed the composition of several U.S. coins. The dime and quarter were switched from silver to a copper-nickel clad composition, while the half dollar was reduced to 40% silver until 1970. The new clad coins were designed to resemble their silver predecessors in appearance and size, ensuring that they could circulate interchangeably. The act also prohibited the inclusion of mint marks, which identify where a coin was produced, on any coin struck between 1965 and 1967. This was an intentional measure by the U.S. Mint to discourage the public from hoarding coins based on perceived rarity or collector value. As a result, all 1967 quarters, regardless of whether they were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, appear without any mint mark. Design and symbolism. The Washington quarter design itself predates 1967. It was introduced in 1932, originally intended as a one-year commemorative coin to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design was created by sculptor John Flanagan, who based his portrait of Washington on a bust by the French sculptor Jean-Antoine Houdon, made in 1786. The design proved so popular that it was retained for general circulation beyond 1932 and remained the standard until 1998, when it was replaced by the 50-state quarters program. On the obverse, Flanagan's depiction of Washington shows the president facing left, a dignified and stoic representation emphasizing his role as a leader and founder of the nation. The word liberty arches above his head, symbolizing one of the founding principles of the United States. To the left, "In God We Trust," underscores the nation's spiritual heritage and the motto's official adoption in the mid-20th century. The date 1967, placed prominently at the bottom, marks both the year of mintage and a reminder of a transformative period in American monetary history. The reverse design is equally symbolic. The eagle, America's national bird, is portrayed with its wings spread in a commanding and protective posture. The arrows clutched in its talons signify strength and readiness to defend the nation, while the olive branches below symbolize peace and diplomacy. Together, they form a powerful image of balanced power, prepared for war, yet desiring peace. The inscriptions United States of America and E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many, one, express unity among diversity, another cornerstone of American identity. Composition and specifications. By 1967, the U.S. Mint had fully transitioned away from silver coinage for quarters. The new clad composition consisted of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This blend provided both durability and a silvery appearance, allowing the coins to withstand years of circulation without tarnishing as quickly as silver. Key specifications for the 1967 quarter are as follows. Diameter, 24.3 millimeters. Weight, 5.67 grams. Edge, reeded 119 reeds. Composition, copper-nickel clad outer layer, over a pure copper core. Designer, John Flanagan. Next top. The 1968 United States quarter dollar, bearing the word Liberty and minted without a mint mark, represents an important era in American coinage history, a time of transition, innovation, and changing metal composition. This coin, known to collectors and historians alike as part of the Washington Quarter series, carries not only monetary value but also deep historical meaning tied to the economic, political, and cultural developments of the 20th century. The obverse, or front, of the coin features a striking left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first President of the United States. This portrait was originally designed by sculptor John Flanagan, whose work was selected in 1931 as part of a competition to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth. The bold and noble image of Washington symbolizes leadership, integrity, and the enduring spirit of the nation. Above Washington's head appears the word Liberty, the central motto of the United States and a timeless reminder of the ideals upon which the country was founded. Below his chin, in smaller letters, is the national motto, "In God We Trust," which first appeared on U.S. coins during the Civil War and has since become a cornerstone of American identity. Below the bust of Washington, at the bottom of the coin, is the date 1968, signifying the year of minting. For coins minted in Philadelphia that year, there is no mint mark, meaning this specific coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. This absence of a mint mark is an identifying feature for collectors, distinguishing it from coins struck in Denver, D, or San Francisco, S. The lack of a mint mark on a 1968 quarter, therefore, does not indicate an error. Rather, it signifies its origin from the primary mint facility, which traditionally did not mark its coins until later years. Turning to the reverse, or backside, we find the powerful image of a bald eagle, the national bird of the United States, rendered with its wings spread wide. The eagle holds a bundle of arrows in its talons, symbolizing military readiness and defense, while beneath it lies an olive branch, representing peace. Together, these two symbols encapsulate the dual philosophy of the United States, strength through peace and peace through strength. Surrounding the eagle is the inscription, United States of America at the top, followed by the denomination quarter dollar at the bottom. Above the eagle's head, the national motto, E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many, one, further emphasizes the unity of the states forming a single nation. In terms of composition, the 1968 quarter was made not of silver, but rather of a copper-nickel clad alloy. This change had taken place a few years earlier, beginning in 1965, due to the rising cost of silver and its growing demand in industry and investment. Prior to that year, U.S. quarters were struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, giving them a distinctive weight and shine. However, from 1965 onward, the mint transitioned to a new composition, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This gave the coin a total weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and a reeded edge consisting of 119 reeds. The shift was part of the Coinage Act of 1965, passed by Congress to address the nationwide coin shortage and stabilize production costs. The year 1968 also marked a period of change for the U.S. Mint itself. The San Francisco Mint resumed operations after a brief hiatus, focusing primarily on proof coin production. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced coins for circulation. The no-mint mark 1968 quarter, therefore, is a product of Philadelphia's regular circulation strikes, while the S-mint mark appears only on proof quarters struck in San Francisco. Although millions of 1968 quarters were minted, specifically 220,731,500 in Philadelphia alone, their historical significance remains strong. In circulated condition, these coins typically carry only their face value of 25 cents. However, examples in high-grade, uncirculated, or mint state condition, especially those with strong luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks, can command higher prices among collectors. A 1968 no-mint mark Washington quarter graded MS-65, mint state 65, by the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, might sell for around $15 to $30, while superb examples graded MS-67 or higher can exceed $100. An interesting aspect of collecting 1,968 quarters lies in their subtle varieties and errors. While there are no major die varieties officially recognized for this year, some coins exhibit minor doubling, known as double die varieties, weak strikes, or misaligned dies. Such features can attract collectors who specialize in minting anomalies. Occasionally, coins with full, sharp details, such as complete feather lines on the eagle or fully struck hair details on Washington, are prized for their visual appeal and craftsmanship. Beyond next top. The 1970 D quarter dollar, minted in Denver, Colorado, stands as a fascinating representative of mid-20th century American coinage, reflecting both the artistry and the economics of its time. Bearing the familiar portrait of George Washington, it continues the long lineage of the Washington Quarter series that began in 1932. The D mint mark located just to the right of Washington's ponytail ribbon identifies its origin at the Denver Mint, one of the United States Mint's principal facilities. While millions were struck for circulation, the coin holds historical importance not only for its design continuity and place in American commerce, but also for its connection to changing materials, economic inflation, and the end of an era in American numismatics. The Washington Quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. Prior to this, the United States Mint had been producing the Standing Liberty Quarter, a beloved but intricate design that, by the late 1920s, was considered too complex and difficult to strike efficiently. When the Treasury Department sought a new design for the bicentennial, they held a public competition, inviting artists to submit depictions of the first U.S. president. The winning design was sculpted by John Flanagan, a respected medalist and sculptor who had been a student of Augusta St. Gaudens, one of the most famous coin designers in U.S. history. Flanagan design, featuring a left-facing portrait of Washington inspired by the Jean-Antoine Houdon bust of 1785, was chosen over other entries and has remained in use, with only minor modifications, for nearly a century. By 1970, the Washington Quarter had already been a staple of American commerce for 38 years. However, the coin of this period was notably different from those of earlier decades. In 1965, following a dramatic rise in silver prices, the U.S. Mint removed silver from the composition of circulating quarters. Before that, quarters consisted of 90% silver and 10% copper, but from 1965 onward, they were made from a clad composition, a pure copper core sandwiched between two outer layers of a copper-nickel alloy. This new structure gave the coins a lighter weight and a slightly different color tone. The 1970 D quarter is therefore composed of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core, with a total weight of 5.67 grams and a diameter of 24.3 millimeters. The Denver Mint produced an impressive 417,341,364 quarters that year, ensuring that the 1970 D. Washington quarter was abundant in circulation. Because of such high mintage, most 1970 D quarters hold little premium above their face value today, especially in circulated condition. Yet, within this sea of ordinary coins, there are rarities, errors, and varieties that capture the imagination of collectors and historians alike. One of the most famous anomalies associated with the 1970 D quarter is a remarkable minting error. A few 1970 D quarters were struck over a 1941 Canadian quarter. This extraordinary mint error is among the most famous in all of U.S. coin collecting, revealing traces of the older coin's design beneath the newer one under magnification. Such a coin, verified by grading services, can fetch thousands of dollars at auction due to its extreme rarity and the fascinating story it tells about minting practices and occasional mishaps. From an artistic standpoint, the obverse of the 1970 D quarter features the classic bust of George Washington facing left, with the word Liberty inscribed above his head, the motto "In God We Trust" to the left, and the date 1970 below. The Denver Mint's D mint mark appears just to the right of the ribbon in Washington's hair. The reverse side bears the stately image of an eagle with outstretched wings, perched upon a bundle of arrows, with two olive branches beneath, symbols of both war readiness and peace. The inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum appear above the eagle, while quarter-dollar arcs below. This design remained unchanged until 1999, when the 50-state quarters program began, replacing the heraldic eagle reverse with state-specific motifs. Examining the 1970 D quarter within its broader historical context reveals much about American society in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The U.S. economy was experiencing inflationary pressures, the Vietnam War was ongoing, and the public's trust in government institutions was being tested. Yet amid this turbulence, the nation's coins maintained a reassuring consistency. The Washington quarter, familiar and unchanged in design, circulated widely in pockets, cash registers, and vending machines, serving as a small but steady reminder of the country's enduring symbols and values. The presence of the word Liberty atop Washington's head, paired with the solemn, "In God We Trust," embodied the idealistic and moral foundations on which the Republic was built. Next top. The 1980 United States quarter dollar, commonly known as the Washington quarter, represents one of the most recognizable and enduring coin designs in American numismatics. This coin, minted at the Philadelphia Mint, bears the iconic image of George Washington, the nation's first president, on its obverse, accompanied by the word Liberty boldly inscribed above his head. Below the portrait lies the national motto, "In God We Trust," a declaration of faith and heritage that has been present on U.S. coinage since the mid-19th century. The P mint mark just behind Washington's ponytail designates that this coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. This was one of the first years Philadelphia used a mint mark on circulating coinage, making it particularly interesting to collectors of modern U.S. coins. The date 1980 appears prominently beneath Washington's neck truncation, marking not just a year of mintage, but a symbolic continuation of America's long-standing coinage traditions in the latter half of the 20th century. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, its design replaced the earlier standing Liberty quarter created by Herman A. McNeil. Flanagan's portrait was modeled after a 1786 bust of Washington sculpted by Jean-Antoine Houdon, one of the most famous likenesses of the first president. The reverse of the coin, the backside, features an American bald eagle, wings spread majestically, clutching a bundle of arrows symbolizing strength and readiness to defend the nation, while an olive branch rests beneath it, representing peace. Surrounding the eagle are the inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum, Latin for out of many one, followed by the denomination quarter dollar at the bottom. By 1980, the coin's composition had already shifted from silver to a copper-nickel-clad alloy, a change that took place in 1965 due to the rising cost of silver. Thus, The 1980p quarter is composed of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. It has a standard diameter of 24.26 millimeters, a weight of 5.67 grams, and a reeded edge, a design feature originally intended to prevent coin clipping, the illegal shaving of precious metal from coin edges. While earlier quarters, pre-1965, contained 90% silver and 10% copper, the clad composition of the 1980p quarter gives it a silvery appearance without intrinsic precious metal value. In terms of mintage, the Philadelphia Mint struck an enormous 635,832,000 quarters in 1980, reflecting the increasing demand for coinage in a growing economy. This was part of a nationwide coin production effort to meet the needs of the post-1970s U.S. economy, when inflation and population growth required more circulating currency. Despite its massive mintage, collectors often seek examples in high uncirculated grades, MS65 and above, particularly those with strong strikes, minimal contact marks, and sharp details on Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. Mint state coins with full luster and well-defined features are scarcer than worn circulation pieces and can command small premiums, especially in certified condition. From a numismatic perspective, the 1980p quarter is not considered rare, but it holds significant historical and transitional importance. This was one of the early years when the Philadelphia Mint began routinely using a P mint mark on all denominations except the cent. Before 1980, most Philadelphia minted quarters bore no mint mark at all. This subtle change reflects a broader modernization of U.S. mint practices and coin identification standards. Collectors who study die varieties, mint errors, and strike characteristics often focus on the 1980p for examples of die cracks, doubling, DDR/double die varieties, or off-center strikes. While no major varieties are widely recognized for this date, minor anomalies can intrigue specialists in modern era coinage. The design and legacy of the Washington quarter endured for decades, becoming one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. The original Flanagan design remained on the obverse until the introduction of the 50-state quarters program in 1999, which revitalized interest in the denomination by featuring reverse designs honoring each state. Nonetheless, in 1980, the Washington quarter remained purely traditional, representing an era before commemorative reverses, before widespread hoarding of special issues, and before the era of collectibles circulating series. It stood as a familiar everyday coin, used in vending machines, parking meters, and daily commerce, yet carrying a quiet dignity as a miniature sculpture of America's founding leader. A 1980p quarter in average circulated condition is generally worth face value, 25 cents, but higher-grade examples, especially those graded MS67 or higher by the professional coin grading next top. The 1983 United States quarter dollar, commonly referred to as the Washington quarter, holds a unique and intriguing place in American numismatic history. Struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1983, this coin belongs to the long-running Washington quarter series, which was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design of the Washington quarter has endured for decades, symbolizing liberty, patriotism, and continuity in the American monetary system. While the 1983 issue may appear as an ordinary circulation coin to the untrained eye, it carries distinctive historical, economic, and collectible significance, especially due to circumstances surrounding coin production and minting practices during the early 1980s. To begin, the obverse of the 1983 quarter features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The portrait was originally sculpted by John Flanagan, a well-known sculptor and engraver who adapted his design from a bust of Washington created by Jean-Antoine Houdon, a French neoclassical artist from the 18th century. Above Washington's head is the word liberty, boldly placed as a reminder of one of the founding principles upon which the United States was established. Below the chin of Washington is the national motto, "In God We Trust." Just beneath the bust, the date 1983 is inscribed, marking the year of minting. To the right of the date appears the letter P, the mint mark signifying that the coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. The Philadelphia Mint, established in 1792, is the oldest U.S. minting facility and has produced billions of coins over its long history. Turning to the reverse side, the design of the 1983 P quarter maintains the classic image that had been used since 1932. It features an American bald eagle, the nation's emblem, perched upon a bundle of arrows with wings outstretched, symbolizing strength and readiness to defend freedom. Beneath the arrows lies a pair of olive branches, representing peace. The inscriptions include United States of America at the top and the denomination $quarter at the bottom. Between the eagle's wings is the Latin phrase e pluribus unum, which translates to out of many one, a reference to the unity of the states forming one nation. The design, though simple, carries deep national symbolism and reflects the artistry of early 20th century coin engraving. The metal composition of the 1983 P quarter is another key aspect of its story. Like other quarters minted since 1965, this coin was struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition, consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a core made of pure copper. The total weight of the coin is approximately 5.67 grams, and it has a diameter of 24.26 millimeters with a reeded edge. This composition was introduced after the United States Mint discontinued the use of 90% silver in circulating quarters in 1964, due to the rising cost of silver and increasing demand for coins in the expanding U.S. economy. The transition to the clad composition marked a new era in American coinage, balancing cost efficiency with durability. What makes the 1983 P quarter especially interesting to collectors is that no official mint sets or proof sets were released for that year. During the early 1980s, the U.S. Mint suspended the production of collector sets because of budget constraints and a recessionary economic environment. As a result, all 1983 quarters that exist today originally came from circulation, not from special collector issues. This has made finding high-quality, uncirculated examples of the 1983 P quarter relatively difficult compared to other modern quarters. Circulated coins from this year tend to show heavy wear, contact marks, and loss of luster, as they were used extensively in commerce during a time of high inflation and economic activity. Another factor that adds to the intrigue of the 1983 P quarter is the minting quality. The early 1980s were not known for precision striking or careful die maintenance. The U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce billions of coins for circulation, and quality control sometimes suffered as a result. Consequently, collectors often encounter 1983 quarters with weak strikes, die cracks, or other mint-related anomalies. These imperfections, while not ideal for general numismatics, have become points of fascination for error coin enthusiasts. For example, off-center strikes, die clashes, double dies, and broad strikes are all varieties that can add significant collectible value to an otherwise common coin. Well-preserved mint-state examples with minimal marks or unusual errors can fetch premium prices in the numismatic market. Economically, the year 1983 was a transitional period in American history. The nation was recovering from the recession of the early 1980s, characterized by high unemployment and inflation. As the economy improved, next top.